Hey, what's the magnification on those things?
They're 6x, but it's also got bipedal magnification as an option too.
What is that?
Well, it means that if you want them to get more magnified, you gotta walk closer. Hey guys, welcome to Gear Tasting. Today I'm going to tackle a topic that I've wanted to do for quite a while, and that is binoculars. So we'll talk about objective lenses and ocular lenses and what the power and magnification means and all that good stuff that goes into probably more thought than you've ever put into binoculars before. They've always been something that's interested me. I've acquired a couple pairs of binoculars through the years. I've kind of wanted more. There's another pair of binoculars I'll talk about that I've kind of thought about getting, but first off, I want to talk about the basics of binoculars themselves. So these are a pair of Steiners that I've had for probably going on 15 years now. I've had them a really long time. So these are made in Germany. When I invested in some binoculars in the very beginning, when I could kind of afford some decent ones a while back, I got these on eBay. They were, I don't know, I probably paid $200 for them or something like that. I'm pretty sure they're probably $500 or $600 binoculars when they were new. I don't even know if you can get these anymore. You could probably look on eBay, but again, these are 6x30s and they're made in Germany. So the one thing you have to consider when I'm talking about all these different things with binoculars is there is such a thing as good glass and bad glass. So a lot of that kind of has to do with the prisms that reflect the two lenses that are inside of it, the quality of the glass that's used to begin with. So buying quality and name brand and good glass, you're going to pay more for it, but in the end, it's going to be worth it. So just to roughly compare that little part real quick, these are some real cheapy binoculars that I've had for years too. These are called like Game Winner. There's no real big brand on them or anything, and they suck. And it's not because of the magnification or the power, which we'll talk about in a second. It's because of the actual glass, and you can tell. Just the clarity is not there. The light transmission is not very good, things like that. So that's what I mean by they suck. I don't mean that they're constructed poorly to where they don't even focus or anything like that. They do focus, but the clarity is really what comes into play when you're talking about that. So these are 6x30s, as I mentioned before. So what that means is they have a fixed power, whereas a spotting scope like this here that I'll talk about in a second has a variable power. So I can change the power or magnification, that both terms are used interchangeably. I can change this between a 15 power and a 45 power. So it's great for spotting things. We use it for precision rifle stuff, and I've talked about it in the past in gear tasting. Whereas these binoculars are 6 power, so that's fixed. And what I mean by magnification or power, that 6x means that what I'm looking at with my normal eyes, this is 6 times more magnified than I'm looking at with my normal vision. So it would appear as though we're 6 times closer to my eyes than what I'm normally seeing. That's what that means. And then there's another pair of binoculars here. These are 8 by 28, 7 by 28, sorry. And these are M24 binoculars, which are military issue binoculars, and I'll talk about these in a second too. But these Steiners aren't, I mean, I guess the military does use these, but these are not, military issue per se like the M24s are. These actually have an NSN on them, and they have a M24 as the military designation for those binoculars. But okay, so going back to nomenclature, you've got eye relief is important on binoculars too. So ocular lenses are what your eye actually looks through here, and objective lenses are what's on the other side. So that 30 measurement there, so 6x30, the 30 has to mean something, and that's a measure in millimeters of the objective lens of the binocular. So this spotting scope has an objective lens of 60 millimeters. So you can see, if you take a look at that, the size of this lens is, it looks probably double of what this is. So 30-60, you can see the difference there. So that's kind of the main, those are the main factors of binoculars. So these little guys right here are 8x21, so 30, 21, and then these are 28. So if I was gonna take off these kill flashes or ARDs, I'll get to those in a minute too. So here's the difference. You got 21 on the top, 28, and 30. So those are the big those are the big differences between those. You can kind of visually see that difference too. So those are the things that are important to kind of pay attention when you're buying binoculars. Obviously, you want to consider a couple of things. So 15 power on a spotting scope may sound, you may sound like you just want to buy a bunch of power when you're buying binoculars or anything. That's not really true all the time. So I want to kind of elaborate this in a precision rifle kind of way. So my scope that I have, my Night Force scope, sometimes it's easier to zoom way out or go to a lower power like a 6 or an 8 or something like that to actually see everything that's going on in my field of view. Because when you're reacquiring targets and things like that, that can actually be a detriment having a higher magnification. You can get tunnel vision almost. So you're dialed into something and then, oh, you got to move over here. It can get really crazy to reacquire a new target if you've got that magnification or that power zoomed in really far. So that's why binoculars don't typically have a huge magnification on them. So there's another pair of military binoculars that I've wanted to get for a while that are M22 binoculars, and those are a 7x50. So you can see this is a 7x28, those are 7x50. So what you're gaining there is not necessarily quality per se. You're gaining, when you're going to a bigger objective, you're allowing more light into the system, if that makes sense. So larger objective means more light, a brighter image, and things like that. So that's what you're kind of gaining with that. So the other thing that is around for binoculars is our ARDs. So these are anti-reflective devices, ARDs, made by Tenebrex. And I'm going to clip these on so you can kind of see what these are. So this is kind of a honeycomb filter that fits on the end of these binoculars. So what this does is it not only prevents glare from coming into the lens, but it prevents reflection from whoever's looking at you, or if that's prey when you're hunting or something like that. It prevents reflection from giving away your position, so to speak. So I've always been a big fan of those. I have one of these on my Night Force scope, on my precision rifle, and I've always thought to myself, well, when we're using the spotting scope, it really kind of sucks that I've got an ARD on my scope, but whoever's spotting for me with a spotting scope like this Bushnell doesn't really have one. So I started looking into ways that I could make that happen. And what I found out there on eBay, and I have had these for a while because, like I said, I've wanted the other military binoculars. So they're a much larger version of this. These are M24s, and the M22s are the 7x50s I was talking about. And these are the ARDs for those. They're huge, obviously. So you can imagine, obviously you've got the difference between, a 28 millimeter objective and a 50 on those. So there's a huge difference. But what I found in picking these up on eBay, these are like $10. They're really cheap right now. If you're into getting something like this, you can see the ARD in the end of that honeycomb filter. If you're into getting these, look on eBay. They're literally like $10 for a set of them, which is super cheap. They're normally, just to give you a rough idea, I paid $100 for the one that's on my precision rifle for that. I think it's a 50 millimeter objective on my Night Force scope. So what I found is, because these are rubber and flexible a little bit, I actually removed the top rail from my Legend T-Series spotting scope, and I can actually twist on one of these to the end here. And now I've got an ARD for this too. So just flip that down, and it's actually the perfect size. So I actually measured the objective. So I measured the width of the objective, and I measured the width of the actual ARD in here. And I had this little card to make sure of. So I actually cut something that's actually two size there, and it's the exact same size, so I'm not giving up anything. What I was worried about too is the actual objective diameter or millimeter measurement here. I was worried that I was going to be covering up a portion of the lens with this, that it wouldn't be big enough, but it's actually the absolute perfect size. So if you guys own one of these Bushnell Legend T spotting scopes, spend $10 on eBay, buy a set of these. You've got two, you got to back up, and now you've got an ARD for your spotting scope. So just a little spotting scope hack for you out there. But that's kind of the different features that I have when it comes to binoculars. And another thing I really like about these Steiners is that they've almost got an infinity magnification to them, or I don't want to say magnification, focus. So they've got an infinity focus to them. And I'm not sure if that's the actual terminology that Steiner uses, but what's great about these is I can literally focus on something right here, 8 feet away, and then I can go, 300 feet away and still focus. So it takes a while for your eyes to adjust, but I don't know how they do it. It's a cool technology, but that's one thing I really love about these binoculars. The M24s kind of have that feature too, so there's no independent focus on these, whereas these little 8x21s have this little focus wheel on them, but these lack that. So they do have independent diopter adjustments, and what diopter adjustment means is that each of your eyes has an adjustment here. So there's a minus and a plus sign, so you can adjust those independently if you have one eye that focuses better than the other, or you have a difference between your eyes as far as focus goes. You can correct that with these. So spotting scope's got that too. It's got a diopter adjustment, and these Steiners have diopter adjustments in both eyes, but these little cheapies only have a diopter adjustment in your right eye. So if your left eye is the one that's messed up, you're kind of stuck. But I guess, a right compensation would kind of adjust for the left. I don't know. I don't really use these much anyway, so they're just kind of here for demonstration with this video. But that's really what I wanted to walk through. I wanted to kind of talk about what ARDs are and why they're important. I wanted to talk about the different parts and features of binoculars, and I kind of hit that. And that's kind of where we'll leave off with that. I think I covered everything that I wanted to on that. But if you have questions on binoculars, I'd be happy to answer them. Like I said, I've been kind of messing with this for quite a while. I did write down some metrics too that I wanted to go over. So field of view is kind of something that gets talked about a lot with binoculars too. And sometimes field of view is calculated differently than you might think. So what you might think is that like 6x30, you would multiply those numbers and that's your field of view or something like that. It's really not. It's kind of set by the manufacturer, and you really have to know that. There's no way to calculate that just by knowing I have a 6x30 binocular, therefore my field of view is X. It's not like that. So the field of view in the Bushnell spotting scope is 180 feet at 1,000 yards, and that's at a 15 power magnification, so the lowest power that it'll go. It's a 15 to 45. And then we looked it up on the M24 binoculars, and that is a 130 meter field of view at 1,000 meters. So one other thing that I didn't mention that I really do want to talk about is reticles. Sorry, I thought I was done with this, but I do want to jump back to reticles. So what's great about the M24 binoculars, these military binoculars, is they have a reticle in them. So what a reticle is good for is calling corrections on something like a precision rifle hit. You would be able to be looking through this and correct and compensate and give your partner that wind correction or whatever have you, a hold or something like that. Same that you would do with a spotting scope. So the spotting scope has this is a first focal plane. So meaning any magnification I adjust this to 15 to 45, it's always going to be true. So if it was a half mil correction at 15x, if I jumped to 45, it would still be a half mil correction, because that reticle is magnifying as I'm zooming in and out, or zooming in, it's magnifying, zooming out, it's getting smaller. So this has the same thing, but this is a fixed power binocular. So again, this is a 7 power binocular, and the reticle is always going to be the same size. The reticle in these binoculars is actually through the left eye, and it looks weird because it counts in single digits, so 1 through 5 going on the x-axis, and that actually is a tens measurement. So that actually means 10 mils, 20 mils, 30 mils, 40 mils, 50 mils, and that's actually a pretty big number. So it might be pretty hard with something like this to call corrections, but what they state that they're really used for is measuring target size. So there's a formula for that too. So you'd have to know that you have to have a known distance. So if I'm looking at a truck through these things and they measure 10 meters, which a truck, typically they say in this demonstration in their manual that a truck is 10 meters, is like 32 feet or something like that. So they're saying if that truck through your binoculars measures 10 mils, that is divided over number of mils. So it's size over number of mils times 1,000 is distance in meters. So that truck, if it was 10 meters in length, measuring 10 mils to the binoculars would equal, it would mean it was 1,000 meters from you. So that's kind of how that reticle works. Similar thing through this, but this reticle, you'll be able to dial it in a lot better than kind of a larger, more obtrusive reticle like that's in the M24 binoculars. And I'm pretty sure the 7x50s, I don't have them obviously, but I'm probably willing to bet that that's a similar reticle size that's in those binoculars too. So sorry this was a little long-winded. I really wanted to talk about binoculars. Obviously it's something that I'm into, and hopefully you guys learned some stuff from this, and hope you enjoy it. Okay, we got time for one question over coffee since I talked so long. This one comes from Kyle W. on Twitter. Any tips on self-defense options when traveling to countries that don't allow firearms, i.e. Germany? Yes, improvised weapons are something that you can make out of pretty much anything. The first thing I would default to is probably what I would be taking with me, barring any confiscation for whatever reason a country might have for confiscating it. So first of all, I would try to take a flashlight with me. So, first of all, what's your goal? Is your goal to actually break contact with somebody? Is your goal to actually defend yourself and, inflict bodily harm against somebody? Regardless of what the intention is, I think being prepared with something that's got substantial force in your hand is important. A flashlight, you can blind somebody with it. You can actually, use it as an impact device too. But going down from there, I would say primary, I would want something like a flashlight for that thing. Going down from there, I would recommend like a stainless steel Sharpie. You can get those on Amazon or anything like that, but those have a pretty significant heft to them, and they're not going to break on you too if you have to use it for an impact device like a Kubotan type scenario. And then just a regular old pen is probably just fine too if really breaking contact is your only goal. I mean, I just hit that pretty damn hard on the table, and it's not going anywhere. So, I mean, that's significant impact with just a regular, plastic pen too. So something to think about. And then probably as a kind of a backup from there, I would take the airline magazine out of the back of the seat. You could roll it up, and this might be a good way to kind of extend your reach anyway. Hell, you might want to do this and a flashlight, that type of deal. So we have found that guns and ammo has more significant force that it produces than a regular airline magazine. So if you want to bring on a copy of Guns and Ammo, if you can get it on the plane, you definitely give someone a bigger wallop with a copy of Guns and Ammo than an airline magazine. But at any rate, that's what I'd recommend for just kind of some simple things like that. You could also use your belt. If you want to kind of, i.e. Indiana Jones style, whip somebody with your belt, you could do that. Or just kind of use some techniques to manipulate their grasp or something like that with a belt too. That's always an option. Just kind of coming off the cuff, you could even use a piece of paracord that you could take with you to. There's a lot of different uses for paracord. You could escape flex cuffs with it. You could use it as a garrote. You could use it to who knows what. Create a trip line across the aisle to trip somebody coming by. I don't know. There's lots of different uses you could do with something like that. So those are just some improvised devices that you could probably either take with you or have on a plane. One last thing that's popped into my head is a roll of quarters to just kind of hold in a fist and kind of give you some substantial impact with. That could be good for that type of scenario too. So hopefully that helps. Hey guys, thanks for watching Gear Tasting. Remember, if you have any questions, use the pound tag Gear Tasting on any social media network and we'll get them answered here on the show. If you like what we're doing, check out our many wares on the ITS store. We've got lots of great things to offer, none of which we went over today in Gear Tasting, but we've got a lot of great products. Check it out. It's linked below in the description. We would love for you to visit our store and see our many wares, as Eric says. Thanks for watching.